When you, Good morning, afternoon, evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you this afternoon, evening, or whatever time you're tuning in the program called What's Going on allpointstv.com. I'm George Moss, the host of the program that comes on every Monday. We don't miss any Mondays while we're in the country, and it's every Monday. And we're followed every 2 Mondays, the second and fourth Mondays of the month, by Satoro's Black History Corner. And I think they'll be back after being away for about 2 weeks now. I think next week they'll be in the studio, and we're looking forward to their resituating themselves around their program that comes on at 3:30 and stays around about 30 minutes and goes off around 4:15, somewhere around there. And we're looking forward to that for sure. Catherine, we're still thinking about you here at the studio, and we know that you're healing in terms of the loss of your family. And I did receive your card thanking me for the things we did for the family. I actually cooked a meal for the family, and I think that I don't think that it caused any further harm. So I'm glad to have gotten a note from Catherine. She's doing well.
Yeah, see, that's I don't know how how any parent could handle losing his son. I don't care what age, that's like, well, I know the traditional Jewish people would consider, they think of it as almost a sin to outlive your children. Parents outlive their children, and they have a hard time with that. And a lot of other cultures are similar to that, with respect to, because that's what you struggle for, is to raise your child so they can go on to the future, and then to pass away at such an early age. She was only 45. Her daughter's only 45.
They say that when you are at war, you bury your children, and when you're at peace, the children bury their parents. But we're seeing a lot more in peace times, or at least these are not people that's at war. We're seeing a lot of people at peacetime that are dying before the parents, and that's not the order and rhythm of nature. So I'm sad to hear any time that a person dies at such a young age. And of course, the vice president's son, Beau Biden, died. I didn't know that he had brain cancer, but reading the bio of the vice president, I was surprised to read that I didn't know he lost his first wife, and I guess it was a train accident, and one or two of the children were injured at that time, so they've had some tragedy. And I do give Biden credit for this. I like to always see family people that are close to their family, and I will give him credit because what he did for a number of years was commute back and forth from Delaware to Washington because he wanted to tuck his children in at night. They lost their mom. He wanted to be there for them in terms of filling whatever voids he could feel in their lives. And I have to give him a lot of credit. Anytime a parent would step up like he did and do the things for his children that he did, and I know he has a very close-knit family, he and his second wife now, and I give him a lot of credit because whenever I see families that are coming together and pushing the next generation forward, I have to commend that. And Stephen Curry, since you're playing this week, you're going to start Thursday, I want to give you a shout out. You are the player for the Golden State Warriors, and I don't watch basketball that much, but in the series, I started watching it during the championship time, and during the series, I was just really imbued with him having his daughter on his lap, and he's so gentle with his daughter. She's a star. In one conference, they showed her underneath the table, and they had a curtain around the bottom of the stage, and there she is peeking out the stage, and he's up here talking in front of the camera, and she's down there waving at the people in the audience. And she came out this last time, and he was trying to tell her that, I'm in a conference right now, and I need to have you be quiet. And she says, but I want to sit on your lap. And he sat on her lap, and there he's in front of the microphone, and he's trying to talk, and she's trying to talk, and she doesn't know she has to be quiet. And he tells her, you have to be quiet. And she says, you want me, I have to be quiet? And he was laughing, and just, you could tell he's a very good father. And so anytime you see that, you have to sit there and you don't see it all the time. And I really have a lot of appreciation when I see it. That's my team for right now. Of course, I don't dislike LeBron James, because LeBron married his high school sweetheart. He didn't marry immediately, but over a period of time saw the loyalty, and these women not going anywhere. As long as you treat them halfway decent, they're not going anywhere. And she stayed with him, and after a couple of children and so on, and they're doing pretty well, and the chemistry had not been lost, and the childhood memories are still there, and they have that and carried into the present and future. He married her, and I was reading where he was saying how nervous he was. I was impressed with that. So I'm not going to be upset if Golden State doesn't win. I mean, I'm going to bet on them. I'm betting with my heart more than my head, and I hope I don't lose another breakfast. I had to take this guy down to Detroit, really to Birmingham, Michigan, and we went down there to the Pancake House because I owed him a breakfast because I betted him on the Pacquiao Mayweather fight. I mean, what was I thinking, right? But I tell you what I was thinking. I was thinking about Mayweather. We paid $100, and we don't want to see you go in the ring and get in the shell. We want you to come out there and fight. So I'm thinking he's going to feel beholden to the people that paid $100 to see the fight on pay-per-view. And I'm just knowing I'm going to get this guy to come out of the shell, and they're going to be throwing some fisticuffs just because of the amount of money that was paid to see the fight on pay-per-view. So I just know he's going to come out the shell. And if he did, then I thought that would give Pacquiao a chance. So with my head saying one thing, which is that nobody's beat this guy, and the guy never, and reason nobody beat him, I have figured that out. Nobody beats the guy because he never goes off of defense. He's always, even when he's on offense, he's on defense. That's why you can't hit this guy. I mean, one hand's out there, one hand's in here. And where's the entry point? And they haven't figured it out yet. And he has one more fight. He's going to hang it up. But I bet with my heart and not with my head, and I lost. And I'm going to bet again with my heart. I think that with LeBron, the best player on the planet, I think that they're going to win. But there's this other thing here about how that guy treated his daughter. And so here I am. I'm the sentimentalist, I guess. Here I am. I'm going to go again with my heart, and I'm probably going to end up back in Birmingham again with another pancake breakfast. I mean, I paid $25 down there for this guy's meal. He wanted everything.
Plus your gas money down there and back.
Plus the gas down there. I had to pay for the gas. But we got to bet on this game. I'm going to try to even it up. So I'll be there sitting down in front of the television set. I'll be a couch potato doing the however long the series lasts. And everybody's saying about 5 to 6 games. With the first game being crucial, it's going to be played in Golden State's Coliseum. So we'll see how it goes there. And if it's on the home court and you got the advantage, I think that they have to be favored just a little bit, but they got that nuclear weapon over there, and that's something you got to take into consideration. But if you're looking out for me up there, I know you are, because you woke, as the people say in the church, you woke me up in my right mind. And I want the people out there in Facebook to know that that's the mind I wake up in every day. So you come on my post like you did last week, I'm going to root you out of there.
I know you got a couple people out there who would like to beg to differ about that right mind part. I mean, it's like,
yes,
I like
every day.
I like to know this about left-wing people. They want money spent on this. They want money spent on that. Sanders, actually, I read somewhere that he wants to do a tax, and he wants to tax people at 90%. Now, I don't know which income bracket, but 90%.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the average person, I mean, what the hell are we supposed to live on?
Yeah. He hasn't learned anything from the Roosevelt administration during that first term. They were taxing John at 94% during Roosevelt's first term. And Morgenthau, who was the treasurer under Roosevelt, at least during that term, I don't know if he was there the whole time that Roosevelt served, since, I hate to say served when I'm talking about politicians, when they were in office. But after the first term had expired in 1937, Morgenthau went over the books and said that all the policies they tried during the first 4 years of FDR's administration, those policies had not worked. And you look at the book written by what's that book written by Theodore, is it Vetter? Vetter's his name, Vetter, Stephen Vetter. And in his book, you can look at the charts and see that the amount of unemployment during the administration of Roosevelt, the unemployment rate skyrocketed in the advancement of the New Deal, and it had not worked. And now we got these candidates coming out of the woodwork. You said Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders, it just shows, along with some of the others, Lindsey Graham just announced right before coming to the studio, now he's out there and he's announced his candidacy. And the reason for all of these persons getting out of the woodwork right now is because Obama has lowered the bar. I mean, Bernie Sanders couldn't run for president of the United States as a quote unquote, John, he's running as a Democratic Socialist. You ever heard? Do you know what that is?
Yeah, actually, my own grandfather used to call himself that, a socialist.
Yeah, I know he called himself that. What is it?
It's like, well, basically, they're owning up. They're actually being honest. That they are Democrats. Well, let's face it. Democrats means people who are for popular elections, and the populace. They have this appeal that Democrats are more representative of democracy.
Yes.
Okay. But which basically, if we all know about it, means democracy can actually be construed to mean mob rule.
Yeah.
I mean, and because everybody, I mean, let's face it. If you're the minority within a mob and you're not one of them, you're screwed. Okay,
Yeah.
so he's a Democrat socialist. At least he's honest about it. I mean, I got to give him brownie points. He's making brownie points for me on that. He's very honest about it. I'm not going to vote for him.
I'm not going to vote for him, but yeah, he is being honest. And if some of the others, like Hillary Clinton, would be honest, she would come out and say what she believes in. But you know what they do? They come out and say what the other guy is and try to define the other candidate, so that it's not even necessary for them to define their own campaign and their own candidacy. But if they came out and told the American people what they really stood for, I think there'd be a lot of eyebrows being raised because they don't quite get what these persons represent.
These people are, I mean, I don't know much about Sanders' background. I mean, he's been in politics for some time now, and everybody said, well, he's an independent. Independent votes 99.9% of the time with the Democrats, so I don't see where there's any real true independency on this part, but...
that gives them plausible deniability. You can go in there and caucus with the Democrats, and when they make some objectionable policy, because you are a minority of one in the Senate, you can claim that what they're doing is not beholden to what you believe they ought to be doing. You can disavow it, but you're still caucusing with them.
I got that accusation level at me as a libertarian. They said, well, you could actually, you could side with either side. I said, well, see, if you're not always on board for one thing and you're actually all over the place, that means you're probably thinking about things. Okay, like, Democrats always, they never met a tax increase that they disliked. I mean, they loved all those ideas because that makes them popular than everybody else. We'll take from you this guy to give to you. Mm-hmm. Vote for me. Ka-ching, they're in the, they get so that's the reason why they love it for. But I mean, there are times when you got to say, like, I'm more of a liberal in some respects for the First Amendment, and the Second Amendment the liberals hate on the average. So I'm more of a First Amendment person. Now the liberals want to ban. I mean, they actually want a lot of Democrats out there and Republicans want to repeal the First Amendment. Mm-hmm. We're going to tell you how to recover the news. Oh, the people who we've got to be investigating is going to tell us what we can and cannot investigate about them. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's going to bring true things to light, isn't it? Yeah.
John, Bernie Sanders shows you a lot about where this country is right now. This man is pulling crowds, and it shows you the state of affairs, very troubling in terms of where we are at this point in time in this country, and it shows a need for a revival and reversal of the road we're traveling down. Do you remember when the president said in front of a group, he said, they are going to make it possible for you to stay on your parents' health care plan until age 26. And everybody went up in a cheer. It was like the students were at a football game. They were cheering so loudly. And, it showed me how much we've changed in this country, because when I was 17 years old, I finished high school when I was 17 years old. And my mom, because I came out, I was... I was 17 years old when I finished high school, because I got promoted twice. I got what you call double promoted from fourth grade, and I skipped over fifth grade and went to sixth grade from 4 to 6. And so when I finished school at 17, it wasn't that there were a lot, you couldn't go in, I wasn't 18, but my mom called my dad. I was in Birmingham. We were in Birmingham. My dad was in Detroit. And my mom called my dad up, because I didn't go to college right out of high school. I stayed out for a semester. And because I was trying to get a job, but nobody would hire me because I was not 18 years old. And so I was kind of waiting around to go to school during the second semester, but my mom didn't know what my plans were. She called my dad up on the phone, and I remember the words she said, "Reverend, talk to your son." And my dad, I got on the phone. My dad told me, "What are you going to do?" I told him I had applied for Knoxville College, and I was going to school in February, and we worked that out. But my mom was and I have a lot of respect for this. My mom had raised me, and I had gotten out of high school, and my mom did not want grown folks, meaning in my case, someone who had finished high school, sitting around the house. And I couldn't even imagine somebody telling me I could be on my mom's help and support until I'm age 26, and I'm cheering about that. I want to be independent. And when I went to college, and I was still 17 at that time. I guess I was the youngest one in my freshman class. I was still 17 years old. If y'all want to send me any birthday gifts on my next birthday, it's April 13th. Just in case you have that in mind. Particularly my critics on Facebook. I know you want to send me some chocolates.
Yeah, they want. Well, if there's any package delivered from one of those critics, if it's ticking, don't open it. Okay?
Right. John, if they send it to the studio, make sure you shake it first. Don't shake it.
I'll just get an X-ray machine here and put it through it first. Yeah.
What, John? Okay, so I got to talk about that too. But I was out the house at 17. I went to college. I never moved back in that house. It wasn't that I was unwelcome. It's just that I knew that I had outgrown that environment. My mom looked at me as an adult. And I'll tell you the other thing that happened. When I started working here in my first full-time job, I had part-time jobs when I was in college. I worked in the summertime. I was doing these farm jobs. I was doing jobs at Green Giant. I worked out there in the fields, picking these peas and stuff they talk about doing, right? That's what we did. I did that work. I didn't make any money, but I made enough. At that time, you could pay your tuition if you worked during the summer, then you worked during the school year, and I played baseball for 2 years. So I kind of had nickel and dime kinds of things. I could put all the nickels and dimes together, and eventually I had enough to pay the cost of education because the government was involved in it at that time. And it didn't take a mortgage payment to pay for your college at that time. All this stuff happened because the government's intrusion into the marketplace.
Well, that's the reason why they took delight when they got women convinced to go to work outside the home. Now they can tax more. They got more taxes coming in. They also, then it could change. The banks are looking at, now interest rates could be higher on homes and everything else because two incomes, we could charge higher interest.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it did. It's like every time they're clapping for your success, you got to start wondering why.
Yeah, isn't that interesting how that works? That they'll do anything to make sure that you're paying more and more into the coffers of the state or the federal government. I read a report just the other day where they said, one person said they came out of college with $25,000 and they paid 40-some thousand and they still owe $32,000. John, how would that happen?
Well, it's because of interest rates. But another thing is, too, now the government's got it taken care of. They got it in their hands, the student loans. See, another thing is, too, when we used to have more of industrial-based jobs, not everybody required a college education. Now they think that's going to, those jobs are gone. We'll just get everybody college educated, and they're going to get jobs.
Yeah.
What? And then they turn around and they penalize the entrepreneurial class, the people who actually have the guts, the determination, and the vision, and I don't use that term very often. I had a friend I met in college. He was there for a couple of semesters, decided it wasn't for him, went on and started a landscaping company. He's probably now a multimillionaire. But, he just realized college wasn't for him, and his parents kind of pushed him for it, but he was willing to work 12, 14 hours a day, and that's what he did when he first started. I don't know if he's doing that now. I haven't talked to him in several years, but last time I knew he still had his business going. And he made well. I mean, he had the determination, and I was, I got to be honest. I wish I would have had that idea, or I had the determination to stick with something long enough to do what he did. But he didn't stay in college. I admit, I was in Wisconsin College. I liked it. I had jobs there. I worked for the colleges at different places. But some people, I mean, at some point, I just saw a lot of people who wanted to be perennial students. That's all they were doing. They weren't going to ever be out in the workforce anywhere. I mean, I knew the guys in the 30s that never held a job anywhere.
Wow.
I mean, and they were just in college. I knew several people like that.
Yeah. Well, my mom went to work every day, so I knew that was what was expected of me as far as me doing what was my job at that time. That was going to class every day and doing my best once I got there. And when I finished high school, my mom wanted me out of the house. Now, when I finished college, my dad and my stepmom came down from Detroit to my graduation, and I was in school in Tennessee. And I didn't have anywhere to go. I had finished college, had my degree, but I didn't have, I wasn't going back home, and I didn't think the job market was that plentiful in the South at that time, so I was going to go to the North. And so my dad didn't know that when he came down to pick me up, because he didn't have that in mind, but I put my car, my trunk it was my footlocker in the trunk and everything I own in the world, and I put it in the trunk of the car, and I came back to Detroit with my dad. Now, I got a job in the school system, which started that September. So I'm there from, June, July, August. And when I had my job, which was in a different city, I came 60 miles north to Flint. Then when I went during the next summer, which is 67, I went back to Detroit, and I was going to go to Wayne State University, my first university in the state of Michigan. I've been to all four of the major universities here in the state. And I went to Wayne State University for the first part of my master's program, and I went back and was in the house. My dad told me, he said, out of the earshot of my stepmom, but I think they'd had a discussion about it. You know how step-parents are. They kind of have their own family, and they want you to understand that this is their family, that's not the family. So my dad told me, he said, a grown man should have his own place. And that's true. I was 22 years old at the time. And what is a grown man being at his parents' house at 22 years of age? And I couldn't even imagine cheering some person telling me, I'd be insulted by that, telling me I could be on my parents' health care until I'm 26 years old. I'm ready for retirement by that age.
I can understand why people would like to, because they are scared. It's hard now to get a job where you actually get the benefits or you get the money so you can buy your own insurance. I had that issue. I mean, I stayed at home until I was in my 20s, but I always had to provide my own health care insurance. I mean, it wasn't the best. It had a high deductible, but I had to get it out there and do that, and I had to have a job to pay that, and I had to do that each month, and I paid it. But the thing is, the irony of this is they're always saying, when can I have my independence? Or if that's not even a thought, I don't even know if that's a thought for a lot of people. But ironically, the very same group that's actually they're looking forward to helping them out is the ones keeping them and people like them ensconced and entrenched in their parents' house, because the high taxation rate, the practices of trying to discourage business by taxation, overregulation. Those people who are sitting in their parents' house playing video games after their part-time jobs and never will be able to get out of their parents' basements has the government to thank for that.
Sure, I have a novel idea of how to not have to go in the family insurance and have your insurance paid for by your parents when you're a grown man. And that is, rather than cheering this man, and he's coming in as the savior, what's going on in the backdrop before he gets in front of the microphone to talk about you can be on your parents' insurance. That is the thumb that the government has on the economy, which keeps you from being able to get your own job and have your own money to pay for your own insurance. All this is they're trying to act like they're the saviors. They are the ones in the way of the independence you ought to be establishing after you're 18 years of age. There was the military that was there. There were other things you could do, and you could find a way in which you could do some things in the economy so that you weren't so dependent upon your parents when you became an adult. I was an adult at 17 years of age, and my parents wanted me to know I was an adult at that time. And I just couldn't even imagine somebody telling me that I'm supposed to stay at home until, until I'm 26 years old. I'm ready for Social Security by the time I move out of the house. I mean, that's ridiculous. But they were cheering like they were at a football game. Now watch these candidates out here. Just watch these persons. Now Lindsey Graham announced today that he's a candidate. I think they got like 10 or 11 right now. And on the 16th of this month, this is June, and June 1st today. So on the 16th of this month, Donald Trump is going to make a very important announcement. How many of you out there think that when he makes his announcement on the 16th of June, that Donald Trump is going to say that, folks, I called this conference to tell you that I'm not running. So I don't know why they announced that they're going to make an announcement as if we don't know what the announcement is. Once you tell us you're going to make an announcement, might as well make it at that point because we know what you're going to say. Just like Carson. We knew when Carson said he's going to make the announcement on the, was the 6th of May or when it was he announced. Whatever day it was, I said on the air that Carson is running. This didn't take any chemistry to figure that out.
See, I like Trump for some things. I mean, some things he says I agree with. Okay, I'll say it that way. But Rosie O'Donnell got in trouble with him because she said he he went to bankruptcy. Well, he was saying, I never went through bankruptcy. A lot of his corporations he ran, 2 or 3 of them I know, did go bankrupt.
His corporations did, not him.
Here's what I like to tell people. Keep this in mind if he does announce his candidacy. Every time a corporation probably of that size, that magnitude goes out of, you're the ones on the hook. You taxpayers are, partially. So he's not the savior. He's not this person you're going to look for to be the role model for efficiency in government. Okay, don't look at that way. He has some successes, but he had quite a bit of failures. But it was propped up. Well, it's like most corporations and corporate heads do. They privatize when they make money. They keep all that money themselves. But when they screw up and they lose money, they socialize their loss. You pay for it. Yeah. So keep that in mind.
There are no saviors. We're going to have to save ourselves, and we have to stop relying upon these persons running for political office. You know, I tell you what I was doing last week. They had I do a lot of, I kind of get my news now from the internet because I get a lot more disinterested news. I don't mean the news is not interesting. I mean that it's not aggregated around some bias of those that are presenting what they want us to hear and what they want us to know. So it's not filtered through the lens of those that are licensed to tell us what those who are licensed want us to know. So I get a lot of my news from the internet. I get a lot of it from Facebook because a lot of people are reading different things. And people send me things in my private chat. I got some very good things tomorrow I'm going to be writing on Facebook from things that have been sent to me through my private chat by persons that maybe, many of them come in contact with things I don't come in contact with because they're on different posts and they have people feeding them and then they give it to me. So I'll be writing on something tomorrow of very, very wide importance, I think, in terms of this one post. I'll let you read it tomorrow. Don't want to give it away because you won't. If I tell you now, you won't read it. But I'm just so looking at the news. It is amazing to me that these, what do you call it, prima donnas, these politicians. I don't believe anything that politicians say, but what I do know is this: that these people, Donald Trump and others, have picked up some energy that Obama picked up in 2008, and that is people looking for an alternative. People are tired of these politicians. I said last week on the internet, there was a post that came up of naming the 43 presidents. You know, we've had 44 in terms of numerically, in terms of the positions of the president, but we've only had 43 different presidents because Grover Cleveland served 2 non-consecutive terms. He was 22nd and 24th president. 1884, and then Benjamin Harrison came in 1888, and then Grover Cleveland came back in the 92 election. And so they listed, this one historian listed the 43 presidents in the order of their descending greatness. John, let me ask you what you think. Who do you think was the last one that was number 43? As the worst president? I'll give you 2 guesses.
George Bush II.
That's not a bad guess. That's not.
Who is it then?
John, he had he had Andrew Johnson as the 43rd president. Guess who had 42? He had James Buchanan, the 15th president, as 42. Now it's interesting, isn't it? Because I knew when you get to number one, what's going to be at number one. Now they got Buchanan almost at the bottom of the list. Most of the person put him at the bottom of the list because he understood the Constitution, what it amounts to. But they got him at the bottom and they got Lincoln at the top. So I knew how I was going to end up. But I went through all 43 presidents. I want to see what they're going to say. And they had Andrew Johnson. He's a bad president because he didn't have enough wherewithal politically to keep himself from being impeached upon Trump charges. And he only got was able to save his job by one vote from being convicted and then removed from office, because Article 2, Section 4 says the president, vice president, all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office upon impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. That's in Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution.
Unless you're a Democrat, and Democrats are exempt from all things.
No Democrat's going to be, not with the people we have right now, no Democrat is ever going to be removed from office or even come close to it, because the rule of law does not, nor forced out of office, because the rule of law does not matter. But you see what happened to Richard Nixon. Now, Richard Nixon was not impeached. We've only had two presidents impeached, and that was Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton. But nobody's been removed from office because the process is a two-tiered process, and you have to be impeached, and then it's referred to the Senate for trial, and you then have to be convicted in the Senate of the impeachment charge, since the impeachment takes place in the House by majority vote, and it's only an official accusation of wrongdoing while in office. That accusation made by the House of Representatives that has sole power to do that. That's Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5. And then the trial in the Senate is Article 1, Section 3, Clause 6. And the trial is that which is situated in the Senate, the check and balance. So one body makes a charge. You don't have the trial in the same body. Then you have the trial in the Senate. And I can tell you right now, anytime a Democrat goes over there, I don't care what the charge is, and they're not going to look at the evidence because they're going to exonerate the person, because that's the way they are in terms of how they see the Constitution. But in Nixon's case, when it came down to the charges against him, they just made him aware of the charges, and before they got to the impeachment, the Republicans came to him and said, "Mr. President, you're in trouble. And if it comes down to impeachment, with all the heat that's being put on you by the media, liberal media, that we don't have any choice but to come in the way it's looking to situate ourselves against you." And he asked them, because he was this close confidence in the Senate, how would they vote? And they said, "Mr. President, if it came to us, we'd have to vote against you." And that's when Richard Nixon decided to step down. Doing so in August of 1975, he stepped down from the presidency. But he was not forced out because of Watergate. He was forced out. And I keep saying this over and over again, and people are coming around to my point of view right now. But I've been saying this for at least 20 years now, more than that, really. But if I told you how long it's been, then you know what my age is. I'm not going to tell you that, because you won't be sending that chocolate next year. Probably won't do it anyway.
You know,
been reading my posts.
I don't understand the anger people have towards Richard Nixon yet, the liberals, the hardcore. I mean, he did something. I think he had something to do with the break-in. Okay, you and I disagree on that. But other than that, he ruled pretty much he actually was very much of a liberal politically, domestically. He was very much, affirmative action was set up under his administration. The idea of that. So was the welfare stamp, food stamp programs, and other anti-poverty programs. It was okayed, and he didn't stop it. I mean, it was a Democrat House and Senate, and that's one big crucial thing. Like Bill Clinton gets the credit for the booming economy in the 90s, and for the most part, after the first midterm elections, after he got elected as president, there was a sweep of getting all Democrats on, putting Republicans in. They were the ones responsible for if there was responsibility or credit, more so than he was, the credit going to them than him. Newt Gingrich, as much as I dislike him, had more to do with cutting stuff and getting stuff going than Bill Clinton did, and he gets the credit for it.
Sure.
But Richard Nixon, they demonize him, but underneath his watch, the liberal agenda was advanced. He didn't try to stop any of it.
Watergate was not what toppled Richard Nixon. The culprits that toppled Richard Nixon was Robert Woodward, they call him Bob Woodward, Carl Bernstein, and Herbert Bloch. Those are the three figures of the Washington Post that brought that administration down. We know about Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward because they are the ones that put out the book called All the President's Men, which you saw in the movie version starring Hoffman and what's that actor's name? The one that was really quite big at that time. You don't hear about him too much now.
Redford, was it Redford?
Yeah,
Robert Redford.
Robert Redford. And all of this was part of how the story was playing out in the media, and just bombarding that over a period of time for 2 years. That story stayed in the press for 2 years. And the American people had not paid a lot of attention to it, but if you keep something in the press over the period of time, most of the things are in the news in the weekend. After the weekend is over, it's old news. This stayed in news. They kept that in news for 2 years, and people had began to think, well, if it's still in news all this time, then there must be something to it. And they built up a momentum through which the president had to step down. But Watergate was nothing by what we're seeing right now. I mean, they're talking about 18 minutes being erased under Rose Woods, who was his secretary at that time. I think was it Rose Kennedy? Was Nixon's secretary? Either Woods or Kennedy, one of those two. And 18 minutes were erased, and we know through the tracking that it was going back over it again, making sure that what was on the tape that was damnable was removed and all of that. We saw that. They could actually show how many times it had been reversed and gone back over again to do the erasure. But we have now 32,000 out of 60-some thousand emails that are missing from a public server that should never have been used in the first place, because you got national security things on there, and it has hardly raised an eyebrow with the same media. They're not covering this story. They're covering it up. And that's why I was saying that Nixon wasn't overthrown and forced to resign because of Watergate. He was talking about there was a coup d'etat in this country.
What I don't understand, too, is he got blamed for Vietnam. Nixon did. Matter of fact, there was a documentary, I think 60 Minute group people together, put it together. They showed it on TV. My friend had to show it several times when he was a sub over at Southwestern. And it was called Mr. Nixon's War. Like Vietnam War, the entire thing was blamable on Nixon. Mm-hmm. He inherited a situation from the Democratic presidents, but no, he got the whole discredit basically for that war. I mean, he was, because he expanded the secret bombings and stuff like that. He was hell-bent. He wanted to win the war instead of what the other guys are doing. They're basically playing some stupid game with it. He actually had some intent of winning it, but they wanted to. They put the entire Vietnam War on him. Entire Vietnam War. Yeah,
there's a good book out you can read called A Patriot's History of the United States. And that book is a very good read. One of the authors of it is Allen, and the other author, name escapes me right now, but it's a very good book, and it should be read as another alternative to how you're reading the history, which is really skewed toward the politicians, quite frankly. And what A Patriot's History shows is that the Eastern establishment, and I'm talking here about the Washington Post and the New York Times and those papers, these liberal papers, I don't know, they just simply hated Nixon, had it in for Nixon. And he gave them, if they, how to say, if I had a hammer, well, Nixon gave them a hammer. And they used the hammer that was you load a gun up and then hand it over to the person who was your enemy. They're gonna definitely load the gun up and shoot you with it. So they gave him a hammer, and so if they had a hammer, they would use it. He gave them a hammer and they used it. And for 2 years they kept Watergate. Don't forget, Watergate was a burglary in 1972. That's still in the news. The forcing of Nixon out of office. He had been elected to the first term in 1968 because they had these hippies at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, and they saw Daley over there, and they got all this chaos in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention. People didn't want to have that anarchy out there, So they turned to Richard Nixon, who had been defeated in 1960 and then was defeated again in 1962 when he ran for governor out there in California. Ran against Governor. There's a name missing right there, but I know that was it Brown? I think it was one of those Browns that beat him during the election of 1962. And Nixon told the press that they would not have him around any longer to kick around because he thought that was the end of his career. But then things began to develop and unfold. The Vietnam War became more unpopular, and hey, LBJ, how many kids have you killed today? And all these things taking place, people in the streets. We had the civil rights demonstration going on, so we had the internal problem there, and just all kinds of turmoil in the country. And so people now turn to another candidate that they knew was a little bit more on the conservative side. The Democratic Party, the liberal policy did not work. Cities were on fire, and Nixon became popular again. He got elected in 1968.
In 1962, the governor of California was Pat Brown.
Pat Brown. Yeah. He was one of the Browns. And that's right, Pat Brown. Now they got this other
Zenmeister, Jerry
Brown in there now, and
the Redux.
That's a lot of improvement there. A lot of improvement there. But Nixon got back in because the country had seen how chaotic it was, and it's always going to be chaotic, by the way, under the care of these liberals. That's what you're seeing in Baltimore right now. And by the way, that's what I wrote about in my post today. If you want to read that, those of you that were on my case yesterday, I included you in what I wrote today. I want you to know what it does. When you come on my post with your noise, because I know you don't know anything, all that does is get me in your face even more so. If I find out that I pricked you and you said ouch, then I'm gonna prick you some more. So I did a whole, the article that I put on Facebook today was about 4 pages. So I just can't write anything less than, it's like all of my posts about 4 pages long on the computer screen. And y'all have to bear with me out there. I just can't say things in a paragraph. Some of y'all write in these little blurbs and you put a couple of sentences together and that's your post. I can't do that. I have to go into more detail and give you the background of what I'm trying to say. And before I know it, I'm in the second page and I haven't even get to my main point yet. But what I write, though, and I want to tell all the liberals out there that like to read my posts and come at me and try to get in my face with their nonsense, that you can't touch anything I write. And yesterday we went back and forth. One person said before I came to the studio, I won't call her name out because I don't have her permission to use her name. But she said, when I posted this morning, she said, the comments that you are referring to in your post today, I was looking at that as it was going on yesterday and back and forth. She said I was behind the scenes just watching what was being printed as it was coming on the screen. She said I was really enjoying myself, so I knew exactly what you're talking about in your post today, because I got in their face even more so on the post today, because they don't know what they were talking about, and they like to come on my post because they think that their disagreement, is cognitive thought. So I wrote a post today that I put it directly at them, because I said that the post is called "Imagine a World Where There Are Nothing But Thinkers," and then imagine a world where there are no liberals. What's the difference? And they're not gonna like that, folks. And you know what? The more that they don't like it, the more I love it. Can I say that? Over my coffee as I write these articles, because it doesn't take me long to get through the articles, quite frankly, because I do admit, and the university found this out, I do admit to being a writer. And I'm going to eventually publish some of the things I'm writing, because nobody's writing what I'm writing, and nobody's coming with the things I'm coming up with. I mean, the things I'm coming up with for what they call Juneteenth. They want me to be the guest speaker in that program. What I'm going to be saying there in that program, they may be asking me to get out of here when I get through with that one. But I'm putting that together right now. I guess they're going to have it. I would assume it's going to be down here at the riverfront on the 19th. Juneteenth is the 19th of June. Called it Juneteenth. And you can go look that up in terms of what that has reference to. But when I speak and when I write, I write with the idea that I'm going to make sure I dot all my I's and cross all my T's, because I don't want liberals coming behind me and saying anything. And so I make sure that I proofread. I even proofread it before I go up on the screen. I proofread it again once I post it, because it looks different in different settings. So on the screen, when you're just writing it, it's just all the paragraphs together merged in. At that point, I'm just kind of separating the paragraphs because they come together on Facebook. You can type it on your own server, and when you import it into Facebook, it kind of coagulates again. So I have to then go back in there and I have to go out and get the paragraph separated again. And I do that as a way of just saying I'm proofreading, but I'm really just separating the paragraphs, because I read it as I'm writing it. And it saves me a lot of time. So, but when I write it, though, I make sure that when I do the proofs, I try to make sure that I don't have a lot of avenues open up for the critics who are waiting to pounce on it with their mockery, because all they know how to do is take one little elementary point and try to act like there's a broad-based assault upon what you said. They can't, but I already know what the deal is. They can't come behind, and I invite them to keep trying it, and look, you're bringing a knife to a gunfight. Can you bring some of these college professors with you that's on the side that you own? Because yesterday what happened was that we had one liberal on there, and either this other guy did not know that this conversation was going back and forth, so he came on because he apparently saw that the other guy needed some help. Then this third party came on. He only came on after everything was over, but I don't know if he was aware of the discussion or not. Just came on there because he was Johnny come lately. It could have been that, or it could have been the fact he came on once before, and I had to set him down and show him he didn't know anything, so he hadn't been on there for a while. But eventually 3 of them came on there, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, I went through about 2 cups of coffee, and, and it was really quite an event. And that's the one that this person was telling me today. And she wrote in the post I did this morning, and said I was watching the dialogue going back and forth, and she said I was really enjoying myself. And I didn't want to say it because I don't like to gloat on Facebook. Just want to write what I write and dare anybody to challenge it. And would you stop coming on my post by yourself? Because look, that ain't it. That's a knife. This is a gunfight. This is the OK Corral. Don't do that. Bring the person who taught you and put them out there. I know some of the names of people that you read. Bring him on there, and let's see how that let's see how that goes. I mean, the one y'all quoted about 3. I mean, this is funny. The one you all quoted about 3 posts ago. Why don't y'all bring him on there? The one that talks to the choir. And y'all think that this guy is profound. Bring him on there. And let him bring it on. That's going to be interesting. And we'll see what you say then. But Homeboy is there to stay. And I post every day. Now, tomorrow, pay attention, because Puff Daddy did something today, and the guy sent me the post, and I got to write about that because that's major. And I'll be writing about that tomorrow on a post, because I couldn't believe that I guess they call him P. Diddy. I don't be paying attention to all these rappers. My thing is back in the the time when they had the music, all that, doing your jaws this way, and the turnstile on the making that sound, that squeaky sound. I mean, that hurts my ears. So I'm not into that kind of music. But I have a lot of respect for this man now, P. Diddy. I think they call him Puff Daddy. I think there's another name for him. And the comment he made today, and you can read my post tomorrow about what the comment was if you don't already know it. I said I wrote back when my friend shared that with me. I said, look, I have a lot of respect for this person now, because I don't really have a lot to say about people using some of the language they use. But when I saw this guy stand up, knowing he's going to be crucified out there in this liberal world he's talking in, because 90% of the blacks do not agree with what he said. And for him to say that, talking like he was talking in the same vein as Charles Barkley talked in, and seeing what Charles Barkley got, a mouthful from everybody, and for him to get out there behind Charles Barkley, hey, I have to respect that. Now, not as much respect as Steve Curry. And my breakfast is on him. And Curry, don't let me down. But I have to respect what happened there. And I would be giving him a lot of credit tomorrow, because I know what it takes to get out there and say these kinds of things. I know the kind of venom that I take. But see, I've been at this I've been at this for a while, and nothing bothers me. And I used to tell my students in school, when I was teaching public school, they'd be calling me in, and they thought they had me going, thought they had me nervous and shaking. I'd go back to my class. I said, look, if you don't see my hand shaking, don't let me see your hand shaking. I stand where I'm just like Paul Robeson. Here I stand. These are my values. Here is my scholarship. And if you want to challenge me in my scholarship, and don't tell me what I'm supposed to say in the classroom. Tell me where I'm wrong. And I went to conferences almost on a weekly basis there for a while until they realized what they were dealing with. I wasn't going anywhere, and I was not going to change my mind. And so what you're throwing out there now on Facebook, where my job's not even at stake, and my job was at stake at that time, and no job is at stake, and you out there running your mouth about your 2 sentences of this. Yes, they kept jumping from one topic to another. You know why? Because liberals got 2 sentences of knowledge on this, 1 sentence of knowledge on the next thing, and 2 words on the other thing. And that's why you keep jumping around. I kept saying, this is an argument. We're talking about this. This is what the argument is. I told this joker, I got to share this with you, because then you know why. Because I don't leave those posts until they start cursing, because that's what they eventually would do. And I don't leave until they start that. Because I know eventually what's going to happen is that once they can't win in any of the argumentation, they're going to start going into the gutter. I know that's going to happen. And then as soon as it does that, mission accomplished, I get off the line immediately. I do not engage on the other side of the profanity, because I let them stay in the pigsty. I don't let them take me in there with them. And then when that happened, I got off the street. But we were arguing about yesterday, and I'll let you know on this. I was saying that the crime rate is not linear. In other words, if you can understand that the weather is not linear, that is, say the weather, if the weather was linear, then we would know the weather today by what the weather was yesterday, because we knew what the weather was a certain degree yesterday. Therefore, since it's linear, be the same today. Well, that's the same thing about crime. Crime doesn't stay on a linear level where it's just going in a straight line, which means that there are fluctuations in crime without interventions. But here this guy thinking that because you make the point that crime is not linear, it means that it's not subject to policies. You see, that's walking and chewing bubblegum at the same time. Both of these issues are true. That is, say crime is not linear because it is not subject to staying the same. It's not static. It'll be high one year and be lower one year, and it won't have to do anything with policy. But it does not. But this person thought because it does fluctuate, then it doesn't have anything to do with policy. This is that walking and chewing bubblegum at the same time. I don't expect liberals to be able to do it, and and I've never seen them do it. So when they get on that post and start the usual craziness, then that's when the fight. I don't mean Batman, pow, and like they did when they had it back there with the one that's on television. I don't mean that. I mean the other one, not this one we have now, where you got back in the time they had kapow back in the 60s and all that. And it wasn't that kind of a thing. But I'm talking about intellectual combat, which I quite enjoy. I mean, I like to be challenged. And I like to challenge myself, because I'm trying to be the best I can be every day. And when I get my cup of coffee in the morning, I'm ready to roll. And I get up, and think about what I'm going to write. I sometimes think about it the night before, and I'm thinking about it in my mind, putting it together. And when I start typing it out, it doesn't take that long to put it together. And I have to look down and say, I'm already on the second page, and I haven't even gotten to the point I want to make, and I got to do it. I don't want to do more than 4 pages. I don't want to tire everybody out. I tired the liberals out by the first paragraph because there's too much information in there. That's why they don't argue with me with information. They want to argue with the side points. And they want to try to, come in a circuitous manner because they go and meet it head on. Then we can see the issue here, which is that they don't know anything and they don't want to expose themselves. And that's what and I want to see what you do with this post today. I just want to see that. Okay, well, I want to say this. You see, I want to, I'll deal with that tomorrow. But right now, let me just kind of end up by talking a little bit about this campaign. Because there are some people already in my mind that are going to be eliminated right off the spot. Lindsey Graham is one of them. I mean, this is my own opinion, of course, but this man is terrible. And really, these people that's running and they've been in Congress, what is this? That you stay in government for 20 and 30 years, then you want to be president another, 4 to 8 years? We don't need that. These career politicians, 82% of the American people, according to one of the polls, and I think quite a few of the polls have had those kinds of numbers, and that is 82% of the American people, according to one poll, do not want career politicians. I'll tell you who I'm really, John, have you heard this woman named Carly, I think her name is Carly Fiorina? The woman that ran for governor out in California.
I've heard the name, but I can't remember.
She is really, I heard her last night. They interviewed her on one of the programs. I think it was Chris Wallace interviewed her. She ran for governor out in California. She didn't win, but I think she's over the company called, is it Hewlett Packard. And John, that woman is very profound. When I listened to her, and then I turned later on that yesterday evening and was listening to Hillary Clinton, who was talking about, I'm not the oldest one, with her accent again. She's back to that South Carolina accent. I'm not the oldest one running, but I just want to say this. I've been coloring my hair a long time. And this is a presidential candidate. And I'm just waiting on you, America, to see what you're going to do in 2016. Because I have not given up on you. But I'll tell you something, if you don't get it...
I think we should give Hillary a break because her husband couldn't satisfy her husband. He had to go play around. She screws up as Secretary of State. We got to give her a chance to have some success in life.
Yeah, but not
elect her, right? Yeah.
But not at our expense, though.
That's why I got a friend that he wants her in office because he thinks that she put up enough with her and Bill. She deserves to be the president. Now, that logic escapes me. But this is a friend of mine. He thinks because she suffered so much humiliation under being the wife of Bill that she deserves. We gotta help her out by building her up and let her become the president of the United States. That's his logic.
Have you heard Ayn Rand? Did you hear Ayn Rand's position on a woman running for president? Ayn Rand was against a woman running for president.
Really? I didn't know that.
Ayn Rand was very much against a woman running for president. She was against it because she could not see a woman being over the military and putting a woman over the military where men are fighting for the country and have a woman there. And when she said that on Phil Donahue back in the day, women came in her like they were shot out of a cannon. They were firing so many questions at her. And she said that that doesn't mean that she's against all the other positions. But she said that to have a woman over the armed services, never. And that's her position. I'm a male, so I can't say that because, it's like racism. Whites tell me, I can't say that, George. Yes, you can.
I like to
yes,
say
you can.
I used to have a friend that maintained if you're going to be the president of the United States and the commander-in-chief by de facto, then you should have been in military experience. Well, I used to argue against that. Well, after seeing Clinton and then also seeing Obama, and and even to some extent George Bush, because let's face it, George Bush too, he kind of he fudged on what his really record was as being a military guy. He's got a little bit more military experience than Obama or Clinton, but not much. I mean, not a lot. But I begin to believe you should be a military person, become the commander-in-chief.
Sure, when we were a country that was at risk, and we knew the risk that was outside, external to the country, we put generals in there. We've had about 7 generals that were president. And we turned to George Washington, who was the general. The first president was a general. And then we turned to Andrew Jackson in 1828. We turned to the seventh president when we had a revisiting. Britain didn't think they had to leave and came back. And Old Hickory showed them the door. And they didn't think they had to leave, and he made them leave in New Orleans. The fight was already over. He's still fighting. And they put him in there in 1828 after John Quincy Adams had served one term from 1824 to 1828. Then Andrew Jackson ran as seventh president, and he got in there. And we've had other generals beyond that. We did that in the Civil War. After the Civil War came to a close, we put Grant in there because the country felt at ease, somewhat ill at ease, and with itself, and thought it had to have a clampdown upon the things that were coming unglued at the seams of the country. We put Eisenhower in there after after World War II came to a close. Eisenhower ran in '52, and we put him in there as the 34th president of the United States. So we now have these characters running. And I don't agree with Lincoln being above George Washington. No way am I buying that song and dance routine. The only president, we've only had, I know y'all not gonna like this part here, but I'll be saying this at Juneteenth. We've only had one great president. Now you can argue with that all you want to. We've only had one great president. And I noticed that when you did that with that 43 presidents and you went all the way down, I read every last one of the things you wrote about them. You get down there, number 8, and start talking about Monroe and Madison and those guys, and you start saying, well, they made a better impression when they were the founders than when they were president of the United States. That's true. Jefferson also. But in terms of politicians, not so much. They were great, though, in terms of what they did, in terms of coming up with a disaggregation of power that democratized the way government ought to operate by dispersing power and clamping the politicians down. I give them a lot of credit for that, and they were great at that. But not so much in politics. If you hadn't had George Washington at the very beginning of this country would never have been great. And that administration, and this tells you a lot about George Washington, that administration is really defined by Alexander Hamilton. You know why? Because George Washington was not so much overwhelmed with the power he had as this nation's first president, and that's why he stepped down. That's greatness. George Washington stands by himself. And you historians out there putting Roosevelt, that's on the left, by the way. The ones on the right won't put Roosevelt number 2. But those on the left put Roosevelt number 2. We got Lincoln up there, number 1. He shouldn't be up there. And they got Roosevelt number 2. That's two different. That's mockery on two different levels before you get to George Washington. No way. George Washington's the greatest president we've had, and there have been no other great presidents. Now, you want to talk about good and all that? Okay, I would argue with you on that. But let's take that down some. And don't put Lincoln anywhere up there where you got him. And we got these jokers right now. I got to get out of here. We got these jokers right now that are running, and I've already eliminated, you can get your choices out there, but I've already eliminated Lindsey Graham. When Lindsey Graham and he and John McCain, thank goodness he's not running again, were over there excoriating the Tea Party and just simply talking about what they're going to do, and McConnell over there and that cabal, and they're going to come at the Tea Party. I was through with those guys at that point. And now that Lindsey Graham's out there, target practice. The same thing is true of Rand Paul. Rand Paul had an opportunity to do something great in Kentucky, didn't do it. He could have come out there being a Tea Party candidate in 2010 when they had a tsunami and put 87 persons in there, the Tea Party did in 2010. And he went in there on the Tea Party coattails and got in there and then became a turncoat. And just listen to what this man is talking about now. This man said the other day that ISIS was the creation of the Republican Party. Like that word, the H word. I'm not going to say it on the air, but that's not, how can he say that? Well, you know, both sides of the fence, right? Rhino. So he's out. And there are a couple of others that we're looking at with Jonah's eye. We'll be watching them too. But right now, they've thrown their hat in the ring. We're going to throw their hat out of the ring. They're gone. Jeb Bush, you out of there too. You're not going to get the nomination. You can forget it. What you talking about, that stuff coming out of your mouth, nobody want to hear. The Republican Party don't want to hear that. And you coming with your Johnny-come-lately nonsense about immigration. We throwing you're not going anywhere either. So I guess that leaves, John, we got to run out of here. What time? We over time?
Yeah, by a minute or two.
By a minute or two. Okay, yeah. We got to get out of here. But we're gonna continue to cast them out. We're gonna cast them out with a spell as go down the line. And Donald Trump, we're looking for you in June 16th. Gonna see what you're gonna do and how your campaign shapes up, because we're looking for an outsider. These insiders got to get out of here. Okay, we got to get out of here also. Until next week, and I think we'll be back on schedule with Catherine and her group on Today's Black History Corner next week. Looking forward to that. Until next week, I want you to follow your dream, because if you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.